Welcome to week 6 of motivation, and where we're covering motivational and change models. In this lecture 2, we're going to look at motivational interviewing, a very powerful model that is used in addiction treatment a lot today. So I want to look at motivational interviewing in some depth today. The spirit of motivational interviewing is that the best in people is their kind of unique perspective, and we want to evoke from them the best in them in the treatment. So motivational interviewing is a what we call a strengths-based model. We take the strengths of the client and we're building on those strengths. They already have some strengths, so that we're going to build on that. How do we do that? We enter into a partnership relationship with the client. It's not the therapist is the expert and we're pouring knowledge into the client. It's not that way at all. Each of us is unique, and we're collaborating together to get that goal that the client likes. Someone once described it as kind of a dance where one person moves, the other person moves, and it's kind of the dance of therapy and in motivational interviewing. And one thing that is really important in motivational interviewing is the therapist's attitude toward the client. And the attitude toward the client is one that we saw in cognitive behavioral therapy, and that is the unconditional acceptance of the client. No judgment. We realize that people are not perfect, but everybody's unique and everybody has some strengths, and we will build on those strengths. And that client, even if they have this substance use disorder, and the substance use disorder may be a severe substance use disorder, they too have strengths, and we can unconditionally accept them as people without judgment. And along with that unconditional self-acceptance comes compassion for that individual. That's caring for that individual. That is seeing that individual as having intrinsic value, intrinsic worth. Okay? And so we will treat them in that way, out of that unconditional self-acceptance and out of the compassion that we have for them because of their uniqueness and our just intrinsic care that we have because they have intrinsic value. And one of the things that we want to do with them, and this is kind of related, almost sounds like Plato had this theory of forms, that we have knowledge already in our head, and all we need to do is to remember that. It's not quite like Plato here, but in some ways it's similar, because the emphasis in motivational interviewing is on evoking. The role of the therapist or the practitioner is to evoke from the client an awareness of the strengths and resources they already have and how they can apply them to overcome the substance use disorder. So we're going to, like I said, they already have it within them to make some personal changes, and we want to just evoke that from them because often they don't see it. Let me give an example, not in a substance use disorder, but a story that I heard about Donald Meichenbaum, a great theorist and clinician. I don't know whether it's true, I don't know if it's spurious or not, but that apparently at 9/11, that when a client would come to see him, or an individual would come to see him or one of the therapists, and they would talk about these horrific sights that they saw, problem-saturated stories, horrendous, unbelievable sights these individuals saw of mayhem and etc. And so after doing that, I think it was Donald or someone else said, "Isn't it amazing that you're here? What within you gives you the strength that despite all that you saw, all that you've been through, you are here? What gives you that strength?" So that's kind of a strengths-based approach. It's a bridge technique to help the client move beyond a story that's problem saturated to see something within themselves that could be built upon. That would be fully consistent with motivational interviewing. The general principles in motivational interviewing are, we go with the resistance. We're not, if what is generally called resistance and the client is there, we acknowledge it. We treat it, with compassion. Yeah, of course you have concern whether this will work, etc. Okay, that makes sense, and we go with that. Okay, and in the process of that, we do that with empathy and with encouragement. And we're looking for something that we see also in other forms of therapy. And that is, we look for the difference. We look for the discrepancy. We look for where their current behaviors, times when their current behaviors are inconsistent with their substance using behaviors, okay? Times when they acted toward health, etc. So we point out those discrepancies because we can build upon the healthy part of the discrepancy. And then we also support self-efficacy. Not have them be passive, not do it for me, but find it within themselves to make the change and highlight their admirable qualities, their efforts for change, all of that. We affirm that, any effort they make of self-efficacy. And when we are going to kind of plan with them interventions or something like that, or we want to explore other areas, we always ask for permission. We ask for permission, like, do you mind if we talk about your smoking? Not like, we need to talk about your smoking. That's the elephant in the room, we need to talk about it. No, would you mind? Is it okay if we do that? Asking for permission. You mentioned that after using last week, you got sick and vomited all over the place. Do you mind if we talk about that episode a little more? So you see, we're asking for permission to do that. The other thing is that we listen proactively for change talk. Change talk and preparatory change talk and mobilizing change talk. So we're going to look at that. Change talk, which could be preparatory change talk or mobilizing change talk. One of the main goals when we're using motivational interviewing is to enhance change from the client, healthy change, right? And related to kind of specific behaviors that we hear about. We want to emphasize the change talk rather than what's called sustained talk. Sustained talk would be talk about continuing the use or the use of the drug. We don't want to focus on the sustained talk, but focus on the change talk. And as I said, when there's, we see better movements toward change when the ratio of the change talk to the sustained talk is higher toward the change talk. So we want to kind of move the client more or support them in that movement to more change talk over sustained talk. So there's preparatory change talk. This would be, they're talking about, thoughts about making the change. And there's an acronym for what to do here. And that is DARN, D-A-R-N. The D stands for the desire to change. So if we hear them express a desire for change, then we capitalize that, we point that out, and we affirm that, and we will have them move further with that. Or the A stands for the ability to change. You're like, I can do it. I think I can have fun without drinking alcohol. I can hang around other people and have a good time without cocaine. So that would be ability talk. And then the R in darn would be reasons to change. If I gave up heroin, I'd have a lot more money and I wouldn't be feeling sick all the time. You know what I mean? So this would be, they're giving reasons for change. They haven't changed, but they're giving reasons for it. Again, we want to support that. And then the N is an expression of the need for change. I'm not getting any younger. I need to just quit going to the bars every night. and trying to pick up people, that kind of stuff, right? So, and drink every time I go there, right? I always have a little more than I should. And so there is the need talk, and we would support the need talk. And then there is beyond the preparatory change talk is the mobilizing change talk. And the acronym for that is CAT, C-A-T, right? The C standing for commitment. So when they say something that is the speech act of commitment, like, I'm going to stop. This is my intention to stop smoking. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be a better husband. I'm going to be better brother, whatever. Then that is commitment. And then the A is for activation. This is, I'm ready. I'm really willing, ready, and I'm prepared to do it. I'm ready to give up the alcohol. It's just not doing it for me anymore. It's just causing more pain in my life than anything good. So there's a willingness there, and so we want that activation. We want to support, and then the T in CAT is taking steps. So if there's talk about taking actual concrete steps that they want to take, like, doc, I just started looking into a rehab program. Great. So we're looking at that action. That's a mobilizing change talk. That's down the road towards some good change if we can. So we want to support that. And then in the model, there are what we call core skills. One would be using open-ended questions. Another would be affirmations of what is good in the client and the good change that they're making, etc. And then summaries of what we hear. Open-ended questions are always good in therapy, better than black-white questions. Sometimes we'll use black-white questions for clients that just don't want to talk, and initially we can get some information, but it's better if we have open-ended questions like, what would you like to work on today? What's bringing you in to see me today? Those kinds of questions, open-ended. Affirmations. I just wanted to tell you, I thought last week you had some great insights, and I noticed that you were really making some significant changes. That's a wonderful affirmation to give a client. And then reflections. And these reflections would be like, it seems like you're really depressed right now. So that would be a simple reflection back to them. More complex reflection might be what we would call an interpretation, right? I wonder if you're so depressed because, you lost 2 people to COVID really, really close here, and you were really grieving, you really loved them. So not only do we mention what the observation, but then we're doing an interpretation. It's up to the client to respond to that. We can paraphrase any number of ways that we can do the reflections, or take what they say and amplify it, all kinds of things. So the other thing will be how we ask questions. What are ways that we can evoke change talk within the client, right? We're going to capitalize when they do make change talk, but how do we help evoke that? Well, one of the ways is to say things like, well, how would you like your life to be different right now? How would you like it to be, right? What do you think how will our work together, how will we know when you are making change in the right direction? So we are evoking from them some change talk. And not only do we have this kind of change talk, we'll come up with measures for doing that. And I like using scale language, like on a scale from 0 to 10 or something like that. Like saying, okay, we just talked about this value of yours of freedom. If we put that on a scale, how strong is that? How important is that value? Where 10 is really, really important, or how urgent are you about changing on a scale from 1 to 10, where 10 is the most urgent, or and then follow up. If they said 1, we might go, oh, why wasn't it a 0, right? Or if it's 10, we would go, or 8 or 9, we go, well, what do you think we could do to get it up to a 10? Or from a 7 to get it up to a 9? So we're asking these scale kinds of questions. Another one is if we ask about extremes, okay? Let's say you continue just to use heroin as you are right now without changing. What's the worst thing that you think would happen, right? Go to that extreme. Or another, what do you think would be the absolute best results of you giving up drinking alcohol? What are the best? So push it to the extreme, the worst, and to the best. Get that out there so that can help evoke change. Another thing is looking forward and looking back. Look back and go, there was a time before you had this addictive behavior. What was it like then, right? What was your like then? Do you remember a time when things were going well for you? What's changed? So, or looking forward, like, if you make this change that you want to make, how are you picturing things will be with that change, okay? Sometimes that gives us real insight into the values that they're acting out of. And so that's the very next thing, is to look at goals and values. And so we want to get at their values, because those values, remember, values are a form of motivation. And so once we have that value, we got that from that value, or we think we see a value there. For example, if I have a client who's really, really angry sometimes, then I would go, it seems like justice is a really important value for you. You care about things being just for people, right? And you don't like injustice. Is that true? And so we could ask about that, and is that what you want for your life? To live a just life where you're not violating your sense of justice, or being assertive and not letting people walk all over you. So we would have discussions around that. And then, of course, we want to help in this process to come up with a plan for change. And there are all kinds of ways to do this. And it's usually to start focusing on a short period of time. So, for example, not all the way like a year out, but in the next week or two, what change, what concrete change would you like to make? What would it look like, okay? So we get it concrete. And if they give a vague one, then ask what that would look like. So get it as concrete as possible. After they give those steps, then you could say, okay, let's just go over this again. Let's just summarize the steps you're going to take to get to that change. Okay, we'll summarize that. And then we will ask, how confident are they that this plan will work for them, that they'll make that change? And then also, what would they like from me? So I could ask, what kind of follow-up would you like from me? Would you like for me to ask you about that change? What would you like from me at that time? And then the next time I see them or whatever, it could go, how did that change go for you? How did the change go? Okay. Again, no shame, no blame, all of that. So I think this motivational interviewing, and again, we'll be covering this in other courses when we're actually working with clients, but it's a powerful tool that I like because it's strengths-based, because so many individuals who have a substance use disorder have been beaten down by that disorder and often feel like failures and that they're wounded and there's nothing left in them that is good. And so I think when we are beginning to see strengths within them and they come to realize that there are strengths within them, then we can build on that. And that's a powerful tool. And it is so important for them to be in the presence of someone who accepts them unconditionally, who cares for them and sees them as intrinsically valuable. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in week 7. Have a good day.
I plan to use my degree ultimately just to help people. I'm here to find out specifically what demographic that is.
The professors really take the time to look at the courses, at how they're going to prepare us to be counselors.
I'm just really excited to get to learn from these people that have so much experience in this field.
It's obvious that they have a passion for what they're doing, not just because they enjoy it, but because they know they're investing in someone else, and that's most important to me.
I ultimately chose CIU because of the community. I love the fact that I know that I will be with the same people for the next 3 years.
We have a time during our classes where we get to be in small groups, and that allows us to get to know each other and to support one another and to learn together. I feel like I'm right where I need to be, and I'm grateful to get to be a part of this program.